The ballroom of the Albuquerque mansion buzzed with anticipation. Chandeliers cast a warm glow over the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, but the atmosphere was far from celebratory. All eyes were fixed on the grand staircase, waiting for the appearance of the unlikely couple whose union had brought them all here tonight. Suddenly, the murmur of voices hushed. Helena Taylor, resplendent in an ivory gown that accentuated her natural beauty, descended the stairs with measured steps. Her face was a mask of composure, but her eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. Behind her, looking every inch the powerful CEO in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, came Leonard Albuquerque. His jaw was set, his gaze steely, a man accustomed to being in control. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, Leonard's hand found the small of Helena's back, guiding her forward. To the casual observer, it was a gesture of marital intimacy, but Helena felt the pressure of his fingers, the silent command in his touch. This was a performance, and they both had parts to play. "Ladies and gentlemen," Leonard's voice rang out, confident and commanding, "thank you for joining us to celebrate our union. Helena and I are thrilled to begin this new chapter of our lives together." The crowd applauded politely, but beneath the veneer of social niceties, speculation ran rife. Why had the notorious bachelor Leonard Albuquerque suddenly married a virtual unknown? And why did the bride look so conflicted? As the newlyweds made their way through the crowd, accepting congratulations with practiced smiles, Helena's mind raced. She thought of the documents hidden away, the secrets that had brought her to this moment. She thought of her grandfather's last words, the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, and she wondered, not for the first time, if she was truly prepared for the game she had entered. Leonard leaned in, his lips brushing her ear as he whispered, "Remember our agreement, Mrs. Albuquerque. Smile. This is the happiest day of your life." Helena's smile never faltered, but her eyes flashed with determination. "Of course, dear husband," she replied, her voice honeyed, but with an edge of steel. "I always keep my promises. Do you?" For a moment, Leonard's composure slipped, surprise flickering across his features. But before he could respond, they were swept into another round of introductions and small talk. As the evening wore on, Helena found herself wondering about the man beside her. What secrets did Leonard Albuquerque hide behind his polished exterior, and how far was he willing to go to protect them? What would you do in Helena's situation? Would you have agreed to this arranged marriage knowing the weight of the secrets you carried? As our story unfolds, consider the choices facing both Helena and Leonard. Are there times when deception can be justified for a greater good? Or does the truth always find a way to surface, no matter how deeply it's buried? The music swelled, and Leonard turned to Helena, extending his hand. "Shall we dance, my dear? We have an audience to convince." Helena placed her hand in his, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. As he led her to the dance floor, she couldn't help but think that this was just the opening move in a much larger game, a game where the stakes were higher than anyone in this glittering ballroom could possibly imagine. Helena Taylor sat in her modest apartment, staring at the worn envelope on her coffee table. The return address belonged to a law firm she didn't recognize, but the handwriting was unmistakably her grandfather's. With trembling hands, she opened it, unfolding the letter inside. "My dearest Helena," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm no longer with you. I'm sorry for the burden I'm about to place on your shoulders, but you're the only one I can trust with this task." As she read on, Helena's world tilted on its axis. Her grandfather, Abraham Taylor, had been more than just the kindly old man who'd raised her after her parents' death. He'd been the keeper of secrets that could bring down one of the most powerful families in America, the Albuquerques. The letter detailed decades of corporate espionage, environmental violations, and political manipulations. At the center of it all was Octavius Albuquerque, the family patriarch whose ruthless business practices had built an empire on a foundation of lies and corruption. But there's hope. Abraham's letter continued. Leonard Albuquerque, Octavius's son, may be different. Watch him closely, Helena. He might be the key to making things right. Helena's mind reeled. How could her quiet, unassuming grandfather have been involved in something so massive? And why her? Why now? The final paragraphs of the letter hit her like a physical blow. To protect this information and ensure it reaches the right hands, I've made arrangements. You are to marry Leonard Albuquerque. Only then will you have the access and protection needed to see this through. Helena laughed incredulously, then sobbed. An arranged marriage in this day and age? It seemed absurd, impossible, and yet, as she read the detailed instructions her grandfather had left, she realized the gravity of the situation. Across town, in the sleek modern offices of Albuquerque Enterprises, Leonard Albuquerque was having his own world-shaking moment. "You want me to what?" he asked, staring at his father's longtime associate, Robert Figueroa. Robert, a silver-haired man with sharp eyes, repeated himself calmly. "Marry Helena Taylor. It's what your father wanted, Leonard. It was one of his final requests before he disappeared." Leonard ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "This is insane. I don't even know this woman. Why would my father arrange a marriage for me?" "There are things you don't understand, things your father protected you from," Robert said, his tone grave. "This marriage will secure the future of Albuquerque Enterprises. Trust me, Leonard. Trust your father's judgment." As Leonard wrestled with this unexpected demand, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this arrangement than Robert was letting on. What secrets had his father been keeping? And who exactly was Helena Taylor? In that moment, both Helena and Leonard stood at a crossroads, their lives about to intersect in ways neither could have imagined. Each carried their own doubts, their own secrets, and their own reasons for considering this bizarre proposition. What would you do if you were suddenly thrust into an arranged marriage with a stranger? Would you rebel against it, or see it as an opportunity to uncover hidden truths? As our story continues, consider the weight of family legacies and the lengths people might go to protect or expose long-buried secrets. The stage was set for a union born not of love, but of necessity and hidden agendas. As Helena and Leonard prepared to meet for the first time, neither realized just how deeply their lives were already entwined, or how their choices in the coming months would shape not only their own futures, but the fate of an empire built on shifting sands. The first meeting between Helena and Leonard was a study in contrasts. They met at an upscale restaurant in downtown New York, a neutral ground chosen for its discretion. Helena arrived first, her simple elegance a counterpoint to the opulent surroundings. When Leonard walked in, heads turned. His presence commanded attention, an aura of power and confidence surrounding him. As he approached the table, Helena stood, extending her hand. "Mr. Albuquerque, I presume?" Leonard took her hand, his grip firm. "Ms. Taylor, a pleasure to finally meet you." They sat, an awkward silence falling between them. The waiter appeared, offering a momentary reprieve as they ordered drinks. "So," Leonard began, his tone businesslike, "I assume you've been briefed on the situation?" Helena nodded, her face a careful mask. "Yes, though I must admit it's all rather surreal." "Agreed," Leonard said with a wry smile. "I never imagined I'd find myself in an arranged marriage, especially not in this century." As they talked, both carefully probing for information while revealing little themselves, Helena found herself studying Leonard. He was undeniably attractive, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. But there was something else, a hint of vulnerability beneath the polished exterior that intrigued her. Leonard, for his part, was equally fascinated by Helena. She wasn't the meek, easily manipulated woman he'd expected. There was a strength in her, a quiet determination that both impressed and unsettled him. As their meal progressed, the conversation turned to more personal matters. Helena spoke of her work as an environmental lawyer, her passion for protecting natural resources evident in every word. Leonard found himself drawn in, sharing his own vision for transforming Albuquerque Enterprises into a more sustainable corporation. It's not easy, he admitted. There's a lot of resistance to change, especially from some of the old guard who worked with my father. Helena's ears perked up at the mention of Octavius Albuquerque. Your father, he passed away recently, didn't he? I'm sorry for your loss. A shadow crossed Leonard's face. Thank you. Though passed away might not be the right term. He disappeared. No body was ever found. The pain in Leonard's voice was palpable, and Helena felt a pang of guilt. She knew things about Octavius that could shatter Leonard's world, but was now the time to reveal them. As the evening drew to a close, both Helena and Leonard found themselves at a crossroads. The attraction between them was undeniable, but so was the weight of their secrets and responsibilities. Well, Miss Taylor, Leonard said as they stood to leave, shall we give this arrangement a try? Helena met his gaze, her heart racing. I suppose we shall, Mr. Albuquerque, though I have one condition. Leonard raised an eyebrow. Oh, yes, Helena said, a small smile playing on her lips. If we're to be married, I think you should call me Helena. Leonard chuckled, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. Fair enough. Helena it is. And please, call me Leonard. As they parted ways that night, both Helena and Leonard felt a mix of trepidation and excitement. They were embarking on a journey neither had chosen, yet one that held the potential for both great danger and great reward. What would you do in their shoes? Would you trust your heart, knowing there are still so many secrets between you? Or would you proceed with caution, always watching for hidden motives? The chess pieces were set, the opening moves made. But as Helena and Leonard prepared for their whirlwind courtship and impending nuptials, forces beyond their control were already in motion. The truth about Octavius Albuquerque, the real reason for their arranged marriage, and the dangers lurking in the shadows were all racing towards a collision course that would test their growing bond to its very limits. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Helena and Leonard found themselves thrust into a series of public appearances, charity galas and board meetings, all designed to present a united front to the world. Behind closed doors, however, the reality was far more complex. One evening, as they sat in Leonard's penthouse reviewing wedding details, Helena decided to broach a delicate subject. Leonard, she began hesitantly, there's something I need to tell you about your father. Leonard's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. What about him? Helena took a deep breath. I have reason to believe that his disappearance might not have been an accident. There are documents. Stop! Leonard cut her off, his voice sharp. Whatever you think you know about my father, you're wrong. He was a good man, a visionary. I won't have you tarnishing his memory. The hurt in Leonard's eyes was palpable, and Helena felt her resolve wavering. Was she doing the right thing, or was she about to destroy the fragile trust they'd built? Before she could decide, Leonard's phone rang. His face paled as he listened to the caller. I'll be right there, he said, ending the call abruptly. He turned to Helena, his expression grim. There's been a break-in at the company archives. We need to go. Now. As they rushed to Albuquerque Enterprises, Helena's mind raced. Could someone else be after the documents her grandfather had mentioned? And if so, who? At the company headquarters, they found Robert Figueroa overseeing a team of security personnel. Nothing seems to be missing, Robert reported, but several files were accessed, all related to past projects overseen by your father. Leonard frowned. Which projects specifically? As Robert listed off the file names, Helena felt a chill run down her spine. They were the exact projects her grandfather's letter had mentioned, the ones involving environmental violations and political manipulations. Leonard noticed her reaction. Helena, do you know something about this? Caught off guard, Helena stammered. It's just these projects, they're... Well, a new voice interrupted. Isn't this a cozy little gathering? They all turned to see a man stepping out of the shadows. He was older, with salt and pepper hair, and a face that bore a striking resemblance to Leonard's. Leonard gasped. Dad! Octavius Albuquerque, very much alive, stood before them with a sardonic smile. Hello, son. I see you've been busy in my absence. The room erupted into chaos. Security personnel moved to apprehend Octavius, but he waved them off with a dismissive gesture. Robert looked like he'd seen a ghost, while Leonard stood frozen in shock. Helena, however, saw an opportunity. "Mr. Albuquerque," she said, stepping forward, "I think it's time we all had a frank discussion about the future of this company and about the past." Octavius's eyes narrowed as he studied Helena. "And who might you be, young lady?" "She's my fiancée," Leonard said, finding his voice. "But more importantly, she's Abraham Taylor's granddaughter." Recognition flashed in Octavius's eyes, followed quickly by concern. "I see," he said slowly. "Well then, perhaps you're right. It seems we have much to discuss." As the group moved to Leonard's office for what promised to be a revealing conversation, the air was thick with tension. Secrets long buried were about to come to light, and the fallout could change everything. What would you do if you were Helena or Leonard in this moment? Would you push for the truth, no matter the cost? Or would you try to protect the ones you've come to care about, even if it meant hiding uncomfortable realities? The stage was set for revelations that would shake the very foundations of Albuquerque Enterprises. As Helena, Leonard, Octavius and Robert prepared to confront the past, the future of not just a company, but of relationships and trust hung in the balance. The next few hours would determine whether the truth would lead to destruction or redemption. The tension in Leonard's office was palpable as Octavius Albuquerque settled into a chair, facing his son, Helena, and Robert. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the soft ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Leonard was the first to speak, his voice tight with emotion. "Dad, why? We thought you were dead." Octavius sighed, suddenly looking every bit his age. "It's a long story, son, one that I'm not proud of." "Then start talking," Helena interjected, her patience wearing thin, "because I have a feeling your story intersects with some very troubling information my grandfather left me." Octavius's eyes narrowed. Abraham Taylor. I should have known he wouldn't take our secrets to the grave. Over the next hour, a tale of corporate intrigue, environmental negligence, and political manipulation unfolded. Octavius spoke of decisions made decades ago, choices that seemed necessary at the time, but had spiraled into a web of lies and cover-ups. "I never meant for it to go this far," Octavius said, his voice heavy with regret. "But once you start down that path, it becomes harder and harder to turn back." Leonard listened in stunned silence, his world view crumbling around him. The father he had idolized, the company he had dedicated his life to, both were built on a foundation of lies. Helena, for her part, felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. Her grandfather's claims were being confirmed, but the pain it was causing Leonard was evident. As Octavius's confession wound down, Robert Figueroa cleared his throat. "There's more," he said quietly. "Octavius, tell them about Caroline." At the mention of that name, Octavius seemed to age another decade. "Caroline, my Caroline," he whispered. "Mom?" Leonard leaned forward, confusion etched on his face. "What about her?" Octavius closed his eyes, pain evident in every line of his face. "Your mother, she discovered what we were doing. She threatened to expose everything. And then, the car accident," Leonard finished, realization dawning. "It wasn't an accident at all, was it?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Leonard stood abruptly, pacing the room like a caged animal. "How could you?" he demanded, his voice breaking. "She was your wife. My mother!" Helena moved to Leonard's side, placing a comforting hand on his arm. She turned to Octavius, her voice steel. "Is this why you arranged our marriage? To keep more secrets?" Octavius shook his head. "No, that was my attempt at redemption. I thought if I could bring you two together, maybe some good could come from all of this. Leonard has always wanted to change the company for the better, and you, Helena, you have your grandfather's integrity." The room fell silent as everyone processed the weight of these revelations. The future of Albuquerque Enterprises and the relationships of everyone in the room hung in the balance. Finally, Leonard spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "We need to make this right. All of it." Helena squeezed his hand, a gesture of support and solidarity. "We will," she promised. "Together." As the group began to discuss next steps, legal implications, corporate restructuring, and how to address the environmental damage, a new dynamic began to emerge. Leonard and Helena, brought together under false pretenses, found themselves united in a common purpose. The attraction between them, once overshadowed by secrets and suspicion, began to blossom into something deeper and more genuine. What would you do in Leonard and Helena's position? How do you rebuild trust after such massive betrayals? And is it possible to find love and redemption in the midst of chaos and deceit? The path ahead was unclear, fraught with legal, ethical, and emotional challenges. But as Leonard and Helena exchanged a look of determination, it was clear that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The months following the revelations in Leonard's office were a whirlwind of activity, legal battles, and personal growth. Albuquerque Enterprises underwent a massive transformation, with Leonard and Helena at the helm, steering the company towards a more ethical and sustainable future. Octavius Albuquerque, in a bid for redemption, turned himself in to the authorities. His testimony was crucial in untangling the web of corporate misdeeds, and while it didn't absolve him of his crimes, it did help in setting things right. Robert Figueroa, recognizing the changing tide, chose to retire, passing the torch to a new generation of leadership within the company. Through it all, Leonard and Helena's relationship deepened. What had started as an arranged marriage born of secrets and manipulation blossomed into a genuine partnership built on trust, shared values, and growing affection. 1 year after their wedding, Leonard and Helena stood on the balcony of their penthouse, overlooking a New York City skyline bathed in the warm glow of sunset. "It's hard to believe how much has changed," Helena mused, leaning into Leonard's embrace. Leonard nodded, his arms tightening around her. "A year ago, I thought I knew everything about my life, my family, this company. Now—" He trailed off, shaking his head. Helena turned to face him, cupping his cheek gently. "Now we're building something new, something better." "We are," Leonard agreed, a small smile playing on his lips. "And not just the company." Their lips met in a tender kiss, a far cry from the awkward staged affection of their wedding day. As they parted, Helena's eyes sparkled with mischief. "You know," she said, "when my grandfather arranged this marriage, I don't think he anticipated one particular outcome." Leonard raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what's that?" Helena took his hand, guiding it to rest on her stomach. "We're going to have a baby." Joy bloomed across Leonard's face, followed quickly by a flash of uncertainty. "Helena, are you sure? With everything we're dealing with, the company, the legal battles—" "I'm sure," Helena said firmly. "This child, our child, represents everything we're fighting for. A fresh start, a chance to do things right from the beginning." As the news sank in, Leonard felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He thought of his own father, of the legacy of secrets and lies he'd inherited. "We'll do better," he vowed, both to Helena and to their unborn child. "We'll be better." Helena nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We already are." In that moment, on that balcony, the future stretched out before them. Uncertain, challenging, but full of hope. The empire they were rebuilding would be founded not on deception and greed, but on transparency, sustainability, and love. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Leonard and Helena stood wrapped in each other's arms, marveling at the journey that had brought them to this point. What would you do if given the chance to rewrite your family's legacy? How would you balance the weight of the past with the promise of the future? For Leonard and Helena, the answer was clear. They would face each new day, each new challenge, together. Their story, of secrets revealed, trust earned and love discovered, was just beginning. And as they looked to the future, they knew that the greatest adventures and the most profound changes were yet to come.